Thank you for downloading this in-ear entertainment podcast. You're listening to Shakespeare's Sonnets. Sonnet 57. Being your slave, what should I do but tend upon the hours and times of your desire? I have no precious time at all to spend, nor services to do till you require. Nor dare I chide the world without end hour, whilst I, my sovereign, watch the clock for you, nor think the bitterness of absence sour. When you have bid your servant once adieu, nor dare I question with my jealous thought where you may be, or your affairs suppose, but, like a sad slave, stay and think of nought save where you are. How happy you make those! So true a fool is love, that in your will, though you do anything, he thinks no ill. That was Sonnet 57 of Shakespeare's Sonnets. I'm Mark Chadley, and you're listening to a podcast that has a title that was similar to something I've already said in this sentence. And I am joined by Thierry, who's actually ashamed of that introduction.
Just please don't rename the podcast to something that I've already said in this sentence. With Mark and Thierry.
So you're doing my intro songs. I sometimes in between episodes do intro songs and hold music. I'm not musical in the least, as Thierry has to suffer for it, I'm afraid.
You say that. I have a video of you singing a song about a starship in space.
Which will never, ever see the light of day. Ever.
Yeah, it's not for public consumption. Mark is naked. No one wants to see that.
Okay, I don't remember that part, but okay.
After Effects is a very powerful program.
Yeah, it must be. Sonnet 57. Let's talk about the sonnets. What do you think of this one?
It's, well, to quote an internet meme, this escalated quickly.
It did, yeah. What do you think?
It's gone fairly dark. I mean, he's the first line being your slave, which is.
I don't think he means it in kind of like a sadomasochistic
Well,
way.
no, but even as a slave of love, sort of emotional kind of thing, it's still. Slave is very, very powerful. I mean, a slave has no rights.
Yes.
And no. Well, he a free will maybe, but he's not allowed to act it out.
Yeah, and I think that's said in this that the I have no precious time at all to spend nor services to do till you require. It's literally saying I am nothing. I have nothing in my life but
I'm just a tool lying around basically until you pick me up and.
Yeah, which is an interesting thing to claim, I guess, and I don't know. We were talking in the last episode, about the end game of love, whether there is an extreme of love, and we kind of came to the idea that stalking is an extreme of love, and I guess this is a similar end of love. You can become a tool for this person. You love them so much, you just want to be of use to them so much that you are willing to be used by them as a device or as a vessel, or
which does happen. I mean, abusive relationships is quite often they are possible because the other person just at least for an initial phase are just too blind to what's actually going on, to how they're being treated.
Yeah, and I suppose in the time, and this might get me in trouble with women in general. Sorry, so the whole gender, but. Marriage was a whole different setup than it is now. Back then, women wouldn't have been equal partners. They wouldn't have been equal in any way, and they probably wouldn't have been like in the 50s when in marriage in at least the Western world wasn't equal. Women were at least seen as the head of the household, or at least some women were seen as the head of the household. This is my domain. Whereas that again wouldn't have been the case back in Shakespeare's time. It would have been, I mean, marriage was about property still. It was about
the strategic alliance rather than actually being about love.
So in that sense, having Shakespeare talk about being a slave and a tool for the fair youth, he's taking on the woman's role, maybe? Would that be a step too far, do you think? Is that just killed off all of our women readership, listenership?
Well, I mean, you are not saying that that's what marriage should be, or even is still today. It's just a historical fact that women had less rights in. I mean, some cultures they still have today. In Islam, women are still the lesser human, and I'm sure even in Western society there are men who have that opinion. One
of my favourite jokes comes from a female comedian called Shappy Khorsandi, who is wonderful, and she talks about how she's from she's Persian as she says it, but she comes from Iran, which Persia became Iran. Obviously, for those, I was just trying to show that I had some knowledge. And she has a joke. She goes, "You have people come up to her going, 'You have to walk 7 steps behind your husband. It's atrocious. There's no equality.'" And she goes, No, you're wrong. That's not the case anymore. In fact, in the modern world, women have to work 7 steps in front of the men. They do, yes, because of landmines." And
wow.
and it's a joke, and it's a silly joke, but it's one of my favourite jokes. But yeah. So I'm just seeing Shakespeare taking on a more feminine role in this sonnet,
which is still weird because I mean nowadays sometimes the woman is the strong one,
the aggressor,
or even with well, I guess. But in Elizabethan times, there wouldn't have been a prince. But even today, the Prince Philip is still the even in title, the lesser person.
Yeah.
Because if what's his face, that Charles's kid, William.
William, yeah.
If he becomes king, she's not going to stay princess.
No, she won't. No,
she will be the queen, which is a very odd thing.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. I'm not really up on modern royal politics. The whole thing just seems a bit bizarre to me.
It's outdated and
yeah, that's pretty much.
Well, I am a Republican in the sort of. We should have a president, sort of not the American GOP. We need guns. No taxes for the rich, kind of.
Well, we're getting there.
Well, yeah.
It's inspirational. That's what it is. There's no taxes for the rich, though. Everyone wants to be rich. It's inspirational. It's just made hard for anyone to become rich who isn't rich.
Party like it's 1899.
Yeah, exactly.
Or even earlier than that.
So before we stray, I'm just wary that I don't want to insult the royal family too much, because that's the kind of thing that can
we're not insulting. That wasn't. It's just a political statement. I have nothing against them as people. I'm not gonna go. Marry onto a nat French Revolution on them. I'm quite happy with them to live out their life.
You just don't.
I just don't want them to get hundreds of millions of pounds every year to
do whatever they want.
Do nothing, basically, nothing of value.
Yeah, I agree. So linking that back to the sonnets,
back to slavery. Well, that's how it started. The whole male female dominant.
I lost the track there. Sorry, I'm usually quite good at keeping a grip on those, and I'm throwing my headphones places. Sorry. Yes, so Shakespeare as a slave is just... It's quite an odd thought, I think. And you don't see it so much even in modern love poetry. Not that I read a lot of modern love poetry, but you don't tend to see the "I'm your slave," or at least you get the I'm your kinky love slave, and then there's the kind of metaphorical "I'm your slave." But this isn't either of them. This is literally I have no worth. It seems I am nothing, and it's the actual the debasing of who he is as a person. He's just, I suppose, with this sonnet has redefined his entire self as a tool for use by the fair youth.
Well, he does. There's some very, very strong images, considering what he said a couple of sonnets back when he had the whole emotional breakdown and he questioned his love. Now he's saying, "Nor dare I question with my jealous thought where you may be, or your affair suppose, but like a sad slave stay and think of naught."
Yeah.
Which just... He
Save where you are, how happy you make those. That's almost an admission of, yeah, you are going to sleep around, but as long as you're making someone happy, I'm happy.
Yeah, and I don't even have the right to feel bad about you doing that.
Yeah, it's such a weird sonnet to just come across.
It's very, very weird.
It's almost cowardly. It's the removal of everything he's held himself, because he's been arrogant. Some of these sonnets were outright arrogant in the 20s. The whole I am a brilliant poet. You will live on through my verse. That's how good I am. And it wasn't necessarily about him, but that was an underlying. I couldn't say to my other half, I'm going to write you a love poem, and your beauty will live on through the ages, because
400 years from now there will be a podcast about you.
Yeah, no, that's not gonna happen. But Shakespeare was able to say that. So those sonnets had a kind of a sense of self-worth, which is completely gone. And there was no work up to this. It just
happened from one sonnet to the next. It just bang.
Yeah, I am nothing without you. I am yours, and it's such a strange sonnet to come across. I don't know what to say. I'm confused, I guess, is the best way of putting it. It is lovely. The language in it, though, is lovely. If you had a slave who could write like this, it would be wonderful.
Yeah, I doubt most slaves were as well educated as Shakespeare.
No.
And allowed into court as an actual human.
Yes. Yeah. I would be intrigued to hear comments from people out there who listen to this about what they think of this sonnet, because by far I think this is the most intriguing sonnet we've had so far, as to what it means and Shakespeare's mindset when writing this. It just because it seems to go one step further than I would expect. I'm quite happy having a love sonnet or a poem going, I'm your slave, do with me what you wilt. That I'm kind of fine like that, but this goes just completely over the top.
Which does make me wonder whether he's taking the piss.
Okay,
so just because he is, he just...
That's possible. Yeah.
As in, just saying the opposite to the fair youth.
But there's no... If that's the case, there's no recompense from it. There's no... What's Shakespeare going to get out of that? Unless
that comes in...
Yeah, and if we carry on that the maybe the fair youth is away and Shakespeare's trying to tempt him back, come back here, I will be your willing slave. I will leave my wife and children and come be your slave.
Which it always sounds sexual.
It does.
I guess that's 21st century thinking, but just slave in a love poem. I know that it's not that, but every time I see it, I just go, oh yeah, I just want to be tied up and
tie me up. Do what you wilt.
The T is very important there. Do what thou wilt.
Yes, it is. I don't know why it doesn't work with just will. See, sonnets like this is why I enjoy doing this podcast. Is it's just so out of the blue, and doesn't fit with any of the others, and I just don't know where I am anymore. I was expecting a nice sonnet about journeying or distance, and suddenly I've got one about Shakespeare being a slave,
just gagged and tied up in a bed.
that wasn't quite where my brain was,
just
but
the
now
fair
it
youth
is.
Walking away and just grinning and saying, "Sleep tight, William."
Oh, no.
Which would fit because the expression comes from that time.
No, yeah, it does. Oh, my brain. You're doing bad things to my brain. Yes.
I would apologise, but I'm not really sorry.
No, you're not at all. I think you should read this one.
I'm not sure I can now.
I think you're going to have to, and you're not allowed to make a mistake. Every time you make a mistake, the fair youth's going to come back and whip you.
That's really strange in English. Sonnet 57. Being your slave, what should I do but tend upon the hours and times of your desire? I have no precious time at all to spend, nor services to do till you require. Nor dare I chide the world without end hour, whilst I, my sovereign, watch the clock for you, nor think bitterness of absence sour, when you have bid your servant once adieu. Nor dare I question with my jealous thought where you may be or your affairs suppose, but like a set slave, stay and think of naught, save where you are, how happy you make those. So true a fool is love, that in your will, though you do nothing, that's just, yeah. Though you do anything, he thinks no ill.
Excellent.
I think I misread the stay and think of naught save line.
That's okay. I'm sure no one noticed.
No, even in my head, I didn't realise that the sentence went on, which sort of changes the meaning slightly.
Okay, it changes it in a way that we should talk about, or?
No, just it changed it in my head. It's like I thought the sentence stopped and think of naught.
Ah, no. No, it doesn't. It carries on for a little bit.
It carries on, which is
think of naught save where you are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. That was Sonnet 57 of Shakespeare Sonnets. I've been Mark Chatterley, and you can follow me on Twitter at Nufkin.
I've been Thierry Hillis, and you can follow me on Twitter at Sound of Seagulls.
And we've been doing and having fun with this cool thing called Flatter. If you don't know what it is, just do a search for Flatter without an E, and you can find out, and it's very cool. And yeah, have fun. And we shall see you next time for Sonnet 58.
Bye-bye.
Bye. You've been listening to Shakespeare Sonnets with Mark Chatterley and Thierry Hillis. This has been an In-Ear Entertainment podcast. To listen to other podcasts or find out more about In-Ear Entertainment, go to www.inearentertainment.com.